Before our guest joins us for tonight's show, I want to just take a moment to offer a word of thanks. You, the viewers, have exceeded our expectations for Season 1 of Very Interesting. You've made it successful. Tonight's episode will be the last of our pilot season, but we're more than thrilled about what's in store for Season 2. Expect a slightly different look and a format when Very Interesting returns on September the 10th. Our season debut will feature Martin Rucker, legendary Mizzou Tiger, who recently entered politics since wrapping up his NFL career. You got to watch that episode. It's going to be great. We have a lot in store, including additional programming that we plan to announce very soon. Keep in touch with our social media pages. We can't wait for you to join us again soon. Hi, and welcome to the season finale of Very Interesting. I'm your host, 𝗏𝗏, and today we're going to discuss the results of the August 4th primary. My guest today is a new member of the Aycorp Media team who will join me as we branch our programming further into politics. Please welcome my friend, former state representative, and former drug court judge, Phillip Britt. Phillip, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here and glad to be a part of the team, Barry.
Thank you. Welcome. So, Phillip, what did you see in yesterday's results? Anything surprising to you? Anything out of the ordinary, or did everything go as planned?
Well, I'm sure they didn't go as everybody planned. They never do. It's interesting to me. We had so many races that we were kind of watching yesterday. Several were open seats, like a couple of the state Senate races that we're going to talk about. But also, there were some where incumbents were being challenged, in some cases long-term incumbents being challenged, by newcomers. And so those were very interesting to see. I've been on both sides of this. I know how the winners feel from last night, and I know how the losers feel from last night. They're all waking up today wondering exactly what they're going to do now. The ones who weren't successful are going to go out and pull up signs and figure out exactly what we do now. The ones who were successful realize now they've got a job to do. And so they're, even if they don't have an election contested in November, they know they're ready to go to work. And so their challenge is to pick up today and go to work. So there were a couple of elections that we want to look at, especially the Senate races. The Senate District 25, which is where we're at right now in Malden, is Dunklin County plus several other counties. I think that one was a bit of a surprise. At least the numbers were. Back when all four of these gentlemen filed in the beginning, I looked at it as that probably the three Butler County folks would divide some of the vote up, and Jason Bean would have a pretty good route to win. Never had any idea it would be as big as it ended up being, but I think it kind of reflected that split of the vote. So I don't know, that's kind of where we can kick off, is talking about that race.
Yeah, the Senate 25th District pretty much gave Jason Bean a mandate to do whatever he wants to the next 4 years, right? It was a landslide.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Bright spot was for Jeff Sean. He did win Butler County really late last night. I think Butler County had some software problems last night.
I think that's right.
They reported really late, but big night for Jason Bean. Wasn't really surprising he won. Like you said, the other three guys split the vote up in Butler County, and they really split the vote up in every county.
Sure seemed to. And he took the majority in every county except Butler County, which did surprise me a little bit, that some of the more hill counties, this district is kind of divided among counties that are more in the hills and flatland counties, as you well know, and they have different interests and they have different demographics and they have a different kind of appeal from a candidate. And the fact that he was able to win all those different counties surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, he won every county besides Butler.
That's right.
There's some bright spots for each candidate, though. I know Eddie Justice had some strong areas. Steve Cookson had some strong areas. Sure did. I know up around northern Stoddard County, I felt like that Steve Cookson overperformed. Mm-hmm. He overperformed over in Carter and Shannon, I thought.
Sure did.
And Jeff Sean obviously won Butler County, so they all have their strengths. And like you said, Phillip, losing's not the end of your career, right?
It's not, absolutely not. The thing is that they're all going to be thinking about today is, what really would have happened if only one of us had run. Mm-hmm. And we don't know the answer to that question. Did we divide up the vote? Did we divide it up too much and give Jason Bean the chance to win in a huge margin? I don't know, and we won't ever know unless one of them chooses to run against him next time individually. But then he's going to be running on his record as opposed to what people expect him to be. And so that's what he's got. He wakes up today and he's got to look around and say, all right, now I've got to go to work. I got to go to Jefferson City and do this job in January. And it is a challenging job. I was in the House. I admired the people who were in the Senate. They had a much larger district, many more constituents, about the same number of constituents as 5 House members. And so the job is a challenge, and hopefully in a week or two we'll have Jason in here and we'll be able to talk to him about the challenges that he sees now that he's actually got the job that he asked for.
Well, he's on vacation today, I think, for a week, so I don't think he's worried about it today.
I don't blame him. I did that too one time. I left the night of the election and headed on vacation. My wife and I needed to get away, and we chose to do that. So I understand why he's doing that.
Phillip, let's talk about a little bit of the advertising. It's who loved Trump the most in the ads, right?
Right.
I think some of that backfired on some of the candidates. Trump's numbers have went down a little bit in Missouri, not like they have in other states.
Right.
But I feel like the pack that Eddie Justice had running ads for him, I think in the end probably hurt him. I think some of his supporters went over to Jeff Shawn. Looks like they broke in Butler County for Jeff Shawn late.
Right.
So I think people got a little bit tired of the negative advertising, not just Eddie Justice,
no, that's right,
but all the candidates.
I think you're right. In fact, I think that may be one of the reasons why Steve Cookson had a greater showing than we might have expected in the beginning, and what the polling showed.
Yes.
All the polls that I saw showed Justice and Bean almost in a dead heat, and Steve Cookson trailing the pack, and that's not the way it wound up. And you're probably right. That may have been a shift at the end of the cycle, where people decided to move away from Eddie Justice because they felt like some of the ads may have been over the top. It's interesting to me because I've always said that if you go out and talk to people on the street and ask them, do you like negative advertising in politics? They'll say, absolutely not, I hate that stuff. But the reason negative advertising continues, and we're doing it today just like we did it 200 years ago in a different format, but the same idea, is because it works. It gets in people's heads, and people will respond when they go into the polling place. Can you do too much? Possibly. And that may be what happened in this situation.
Let's end the Senate 25th District debate with that. Congratulations to Jason Bean, our new senator-elect.
That's right.
But congratulations to the other 3. It took a lot of courage to get on the ballot. They all run a great campaign. They all worked hard. I know it's disappointing, but I got a feeling a few of those guys will be back.
Absolutely. It's always a challenge when you come up on the short end of the vote. But yeah, you just got to pick it up. And the most important thing is for them to continue to be a part of the process. The last thing we want is for them to just stand back and shoot arrows at Jason now that he's been elected.
I'm friends with Jason Bean and Steve Cookson. I like both of those guys. Mm-hmm. I didn't know Eddie Justice before he came on the show, but right. I like Eddie Justice. Mm-hmm. He was very nice, very accommodating when he came to the show. And as you know, we disagreed a lot, but
Sure.
He was for his team. I was representing my team. So
right.
He did a good job. Mm-hmm. He wasn't like the character that his PACs portrayed him on TV.
Right. I agree.
He was actually a genuinely sincere guy. And I got a feeling we haven't heard the last of him.
No, and every time I've met him, I met him several times in Jefferson City at different things. And even, I represented a little portion of Butler County for a while. And so we crossed paths over the years. And I've always found him to be, he's always been nice to me and always genuine in what he tells me. So,
well, let's move on to one that's in your home district, mm-hmm. McDaniel versus McCormick. Myself, I thought the insiders wanted McDaniel gone.
Yeah.
But the people felt differently, and McDaniel pretty much landslided McCormick.
It was, and in fact, the vote wasn't even close. In either county, in fact, it wasn't close. That's my old district, sort of. Mm-hmm. It's totally changed over the years, and I was talking to someone last night. Andrew McDaniel, this will be his last term that he can serve with term limits. Missouri has term limits of 8 years, and this is his 4th term as a state representative, so he'll be he'll be moving on after this. And I was talking to someone about that said they might just step up and run. And I said, it's going to be a totally different district. We're doing the census this year. We're going to redraw the lines at the end, before the next election. And it could be completely different. When I ran 22 years ago, Parma was in this district. Malden was in this district. In fact, Bernie, all the way to Dexter in Stoddard County, was in this district. And so it's totally different now. Now it's southern Dunklin County and southern 𝗙𝗲 County. So it's a totally different district. But Andrew McDaniel has run, 4 times now. He's been successful all 4 times. This is the first time he's had a primary challenger. Most of his races have been in November. So he doesn't know what to do with himself today, I guarantee you. He doesn't have to keep running until November. I think from a state representative standpoint, this may have been the hardest campaign to ever run. And I think the county races show it, and I think this race showed it. This year, the incumbents had a huge advantage, even more so than they normally do, because you couldn't get out there and meet people in the same way that you could in other years.
True.
You couldn't go to their house and open their door and chat with them on their front porch. If you did, people would be afraid to talk to you in a lot of cases. And so I think that this was a hard year to challenge an incumbent. And we saw that in the county races in Stoddard County and in Dunklin County, as well as the state representative race. The Senate's a little bit different. Obviously, this was an open seat, but it's a little different because you can get your name out there with social media, with the mailing, with TV, all the things that they did. You can get your name out there. But it's a challenge in a House race. A House race is about knocking on doors and shaking people's hands. And you've got to talk to every person, because I've said, I've heard many people say, I didn't vote for him because he never came by my house. And that's an odd thing for me, because I choose to try to get to know things myself and choose to make my own decisions. But a lot of people want that person to come by, that personal contact. And I think that hurt Jeff McCormick. I think he had, he also changed parties for the last time he ran, when he ran for re-election as Dunklin County prosecutor. He had originally run as a Democrat, both for the state house as well as for prosecutor, and won. And then he lost an election in the Republican primary 2 years ago for county prosecutor. And I think with some people that probably hurt him. There are some people that there are some Democrats in the county that just won't take a Republican ballot. They're not going to do it. Even if they didn't get to vote for anybody, they're not going to do it. And you see that because there were some folks in Dunklin County who took a Democratic ballot yesterday. The question I think Jeff probably is going to be thinking about today is, should I just run in November? Should I run as a Democrat again? But then you got the back and forth. It's hard to know. It's hard to know.
Which I think is ridiculous. You grow up with a set of principles and values.
Right.
Switching parties back and forth never pays off.
Back and forth does not. Now, sometimes people will change their ideas, or they'll feel like the party's changed and they'll move. Chris Koster did that because he felt like that the Republican Party had left him.
Didn't pay off for him either.
Eric Gratton's kind of did the same thing. It did pay off for him.
Short term.
In the short term, that's right. But he may be back. Who knows what's going to happen with him?
But you kind of get into a certain situation though, where it looks like you're just acting.
That's right.
Were you really this way 4 years ago or 2 years ago, and now you're this way? My gut feeling is no.
Right. And I've liked Jeff. Jeff and I have been friends for a long time. I like Andrew. I've gotten to know him over the last 8 years. I didn't know him at all before, but he has come over and talked to me on several occasions. I've seen him in Jefferson City. And he's always been really welcoming and accommodating to me. Part of that's the alumni thing of being a former state representative, but part of it is just that he wants to reach out and be friendly to a constituent. So I think it's important for us to know that he's going to be there for another 2 years for us. Have we seen the end of Jeff McCormick? I hope not. I want Jeff to continue to be involved because Jeff is got a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm. He's a smart guy. I think probably the fact that his mailer said he was a lawyer may not have been a good thing, because a lot of people think the legislature is made up of just lawyers and nobody else. We need to send other people there. Well, it's not really made up of lawyers. There were only 17 of us out of 163 when I was in the legislature, and the numbers aren't a whole lot bigger than that now. But sometimes that's a detriment to you when you say you're a lawyer and you're running for a state representative seat. So
I also think, Phillip, that Andrew McDaniel has always been underestimated.
I agree.
He always overperforms, so that's a testament to his ability to run a campaign.
It is.
He's always underestimated. I felt like the establishment wanted him out, and the people spoke, and he landslided.
Absolutely.
But Jeff McCormick will be back. Let's move on to Holly Rader and Kathy Swan. That was the nail biter of the night.
That was a close one right down to the very end, and then it was still close.
It may not be over yet. There may
That's
be a
true.
recount.
I'm sure there will be a recount because the numbers are so close. I mean, we're inside of 200 votes, and so it astonished me. I was watching it last night too, as the reports were coming in, and all that was left in the whole senatorial district was Madison County, Frederick County area, and I was wondering which one of those ladies had been out there really working hard in Madison County, and it appears that it was Holly Rader, because she was about 350 votes down when before those results came in, and she wound up being almost 200 votes up by the end.
That was a cliffhanger. I texted Holly last night and said, Madison County's not updating on my computer. Did you win or not? She said, I won with a praise sign by 141 votes, she said.
There you go.
So congratulations to her.
Absolutely.
Congratulations to Kathy Swan. That was a bitter campaign.
Oh, it was. It
It's
really
like
was.
who loved Trump the most? The answer's Holly Rader.
And that one did get pretty personal, I think, at times. I think it was about some missed votes, and Holly Rader's response to some of that was right. There are times when you're in a committee in the Senate, you're presenting a bill, or you're somewhere you're not able to be on the floor, when the vote is taken, and some of those votes, will stay open for a little while, but a lot of them won't. And so they, unless there was, you just missed, you were on the floor and you didn't get recorded somehow, those votes don't get recorded. And so I think looking at those kinds of things, maybe, especially over an 8-year career, I think that may have been a little bit disingenuous.
I don't think they're having coffee together this morning, do you?
Probably not. The interesting thing is Holly, or whoever winds up being finally after a recount, maybe the winner, but Holly will have to face Donnie Owens, the Democrat, in November. We know that's a fairly Republican district. I mean, that's a very Republican district. But if Holly's able to succeed, I think she'll be the first female state senator from Southeast Missouri. If there's been one before, I'm not aware. And that's a big deal. That's a huge deal for us.
Which another side note to that, Phillip, is 𝗏𝐫𝐻 never likes to lose that Senate seat.
Right.
Democrats usually join in with Republicans in Cape County.
That's right.
To make sure that they keep that seat.
That's right.
I'll never forget, I don't know if it's 4 years ago or 8 years ago, I walked into Panera Bread in Cape, and there was Wayne Wallingford and Jerry Ford sitting there together,
Right.
strategizing. So I was like, what's going on
And that's
here?
definitely opposite ends of the spectrum.
And Jerry Ford's like, we like to keep that seat right here in Cape County, Barry, Democrat
right.
or Republican. So
right.
it's quite a feat that Holly pulled this upset.
It is, and she got 5,700 votes in Cape Girardeau County. She only lost that county by 3,000 votes, and that's a huge deal. That really is where the difference was made.
That was against the odds.
Because she won Scott County by the same amount, so they were dead even coming out of their home counties. Yep. And so that was a huge deal.
And Holly worked hard. Holly Rader, hard work pays off. And I mean, it appears she's our senator-elect in District 27.
Most likely, most likely.
Well, let's move on to some of our local races, Phillip.
Yeah.
The sheriff's race was heated in Stuttard County, very, very heated.
It was.
I thought it was going to be a lot closer than it was. It turned out the incumbent, Sheriff Carl Hefner, pretty much landslided Tim McCoy.
Right.
It was fought to the bitter end, but the incumbent, he prevailed.
I watched both of them as they came on very interesting and talked with you, and I think they both were, very well spoken and were able to kind of articulate what they wanted, what their vision was. But I think it came back to one of those situations where it's really hard to get out and campaign in this year. And I think that probably hurt Tim McCoy the same way that it hurt Jeff McCormick. He didn't have the name recognition that he needed to end up pulling it off. The sheriff could be out there all the time because his job is to be out in the public. He's an essential worker in the sense that he's out there every day, no matter what the virus was doing. and what the rest of us were doing. He was out there, and it's always hard. I would say the hardest person to unseat is an incumbent sheriff, because an incumbent sheriff has a real bully pulpit, so to speak. He's got built-in name recognition and built-in opportunities to be out and talk to the people, and I think it's important to remember that. Tim McCoy, I think, ran a really good race. I liked what he had to say when he was here, but I think it was hard for him to get the traction he needed because he couldn't go door to door in the same way that you would in normal years.
Early in that campaign, I thought McCoy had a lead. It slipped away from him here at the end big time.
Yep. And there were some questionable ads and some other things that may have popped up on social media. They went back and forth quite a bit about those things. But I think in the end, it was more about the sheriff's name recognition. He's been a sheriff for a long time, and I think it was that was probably more the most important factor.
In the end, it was a mandate for Sheriff Hefner. I mean,
Absolutely.
The citizens of Stoddard County said, "We're comfortable with who we got.
Sure.
He's our man."
Absolutely.
We had a coroner's race in Stoddard County. We interviewed both of those guys.
You sure
I like
did.
both of those guys.
They both came across really well when they were here, I thought. I think it's the first time in my memory, at least locally, that we've had a really hotly contested coroner's race, and one that neither of the candidates were involved in the funeral business. I mean, majority of the time in a rural county, your coroner is someone who is involved in the funeral business. It always has been in most of the counties that I've ever been around. But these guys are both first responder type folks, which is good. I think it's great that they're interested in that job and wanting to have that job. We need good people, and not that there aren't good people in the funeral business. There are many good people in the funeral business. In fact, the county coroner in Dunklin County has a funeral home, James Powell, but that's who he normally is. So it was interesting for me to watch a coroner's race play out. How do you run for coroner? And it's really not about what you're going to do as coroner, but more about who you are as a person and the likability. That's one that was a popularity contest more than any other race that I've ever seen, because you can have somebody you really like, but you really don't think they're going to make a good sheriff, or you can have somebody you really, really like and you think if they go to Jefferson City, they're not going to represent us very well. But from a coroner's perspective, most of us don't really know what their job is, and how, what the qualifications would be. And so you look at the two and you go, well, I like him a lot better, or I like what he has to say a lot better, and you vote for that person. So I think that's why it was fairly close, but Brent Stidham pulled it out. I think it was like 56-44%. So, but I think they both ran a really good race, a really clean race, and I think they should both be proud of what they did.
I think you're right, Phillip. They both had a mutual respect for each other.
Seemed to.
I talked to them both. They liked the other person, so there was never any negativity there.
Right.
And I think Don Seymour's probably congratulated
Well, I'm sure
Brent
he did.
Stidham today.
Absolutely.
Congratulations to Brent Stidham.
Yep.
And let's move on to another topic.
Okay.
There's a few more races in Stoddard County we had. One of them was closer than I thought, Jeff Riddle and Carolyn Jarrell.
It was. That one ended up being 46-39, and for a while Riddle was ahead as the reports were coming in, as the votes were coming in. But again, I really think that the incumbency had a huge part to do with it. I think that he was a good candidate, and in a different year he might have had a better chance. Because it was really hard, just a challenge to get out and meet people that he didn't know already. And you think you know a lot of people until you go out and knock on doors. And then you start to wonder if you know anybody at all in the district. I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, we had thousands of people that voted, and you think you know a lot of people, but boy, it really gives you a wake-up call as a candidate when you start knocking on doors and realizing you don't really know anybody.
Well, let's talk about that, Phillip. I really felt like, just from the numbers I was hearing during the day yesterday, we were having a very, very high turnout. But based on the Senate 25 district turnout and the state rep race down in 𝗏𝗏 and Dunklin, we actually had a pretty low turnout yesterday, which was very surprising with all these hot races.
It was, but what I've and I think you saw in Stoddard County a pretty good turnout.
They were expecting 10,000. I think they got 6. So
Well, but I still think that was a pretty decent turnout for this kind of with the pandemic. I mean, there are people that didn't go out and vote because they were afraid to, especially older people. They may not have known how to mail in a vote. They may not have known what to do to get an absentee ballot, those kind of things. And so there may be some people that sat out this
and
election.
if you're a Democrat, you didn't have anything to vote on. yesterday.
Exactly. And the reality is that there are a lot of folks who are Trump voters who are Trump voters. They're not necessarily Republicans. They're not necessarily independents or libertarians or what they don't classify anywhere. They don't vote for anybody else. They may have even gotten registered to vote for Donald Trump 4 years ago. And so those folks, a lot of them didn't vote either. And so that's part of it. But the reality is I've always said the one race that can kind of get people stirred up in a county is a sheriff's race, which is probably why they expected 10,000 people, because that's the kind of race that usually stirs people up. But this year is obviously totally different than any year we've ever had because of the fact that it's, with the virus and with everything else, it's just a challenge.
One more race we'll touch on. We'll move on to something else. But Eric Gratton's Department of Public Safety guy, Drew Juden, he got landslided up in 𝗀𝗲𝗏.
He sure did. Again, there's some incumbency, though he did have some name recognition, but most of his name recognition comes either from his time with Eric Gratton's, which may or may not have been a positive thing for him, or it came from being in Sikeston. And that may not have carried over very well to a 𝗀𝗏𝗏 County audience. He was head of DPS in Sikeston for a lot of years. And so, there's the power of incumbency again, we see. But yeah, I was surprised by the final outcome in that race as well. I thought that race would be a lot closer just because of his name recognition, but it didn't turn out that way.
Do you have any other head-to-head matchups?
There's one other race that was, I thought, pretty competitive was, we're here in Malden. It was the North End County Commissioner in Dunklin County, Ron Huber and Wes Shelton. And Ron Huber ended up winning that one pretty big. It was really close until Campbell came in, and boy, Campbell pushed him over the top. He's from Campbell. He's got a lot. He's well liked over there. Malden was dead even. I mean, literally like 2 votes separating them in Malden, which I've always said that those two towns will, even though Campbell's smaller, a little bit smaller, they'll vote comparable numbers, but Campbell has a tendency to get behind one person, and especially if it's somebody that's from there or somebody they know well, they'll get behind that person. Malden has a tendency to split their vote, and that showed here.
What was the final vote tally on that race? Did you have that?
I think I wrote that down. Let me see if I've got that one. No, I didn't, but it wasn't very close in the end. It wound up being not very close.
Ron Huber, congratulations. I also want to give a shout out to my brother, Bobby Aycorp. He was elected to another 4-year term as a county commissioner in 𝗏𝗏𝗏 County.
What was his percentage in that one, Barry?
It was 100%.
There you go.
Buddy Cooper won the primary, and he'll be our new sheriff in 𝗏𝗏𝗏 County. Big congratulations to Buddy Cooper and all the candidates over in 𝗏𝗏𝗏 County. One last thing I want to discuss, Phillip, is something that was near and dear to my heart. I talked to all the candidates about it. Amendment to Medicaid expansion. Thank you to the citizens of Missouri for passing Medicaid expansion. We're the 39th state. We don't look like big dummies anymore. Rural white and blacks have more access to health care, and there'll be about 250,000 more insured people in the state of Missouri. We finally got it across the finish line after how many years?
Way too many.
And the Republican legislature, state senate, I think our state treasurer made a big lap around Missouri the last 2 or 3 days, bashing it. Schools aren't going to go bankrupt. It's all going to be positive. So thank you to the citizens of the state of Missouri for passing Medicaid expansion. It's going to be an economic boom for this state. It's going to create jobs, and everything's going to be positive about it. The proof is with the other 38 states. Nothing's bad happened. Some of them passed it a long time ago. So all these scary tactics that the Republicans used the last 10 years, the party's over for that, and Medicaid expansion is here to stay because the people spoke. Phillip, I'll give you the last word on Medicaid expansion.
Well, we see a lot of folks right here in Dunklin County and the surrounding counties that are extremely poor or they work a minimum wage job. But if you work a minimum wage job, you don't qualify for Medicaid in Missouri. If you make more than around $6,000 a year for a family, you don't qualify for Medicaid unless you're a female who's pregnant and for the 60 days after the child's born, or children are covered. We don't want, have been covered. But it's going to make a huge difference for folks. It really will.
It's really sad to me, Phillip, that the poorest counties in our state voted against Medicaid expansion.
Sure did.
The Republicans done a good job of making poor people thinking they're rich on this topic. So it's really a great day for the citizens of Missouri to pass that.
They think either that they don't need it, they don't need the insurance, but we're in the process, and down in Kennett we had a hospital that closed, and they're in the process of maybe building a new hospital. That's the plan at this point, and I think this makes it viable. I really do. I think the way things were, it may not have been a viable option for us.
Well, it's a shame that hospital probably would have never closed. We would have got Medicaid expansion 8 years ago.
I was on the board, the local board of that hospital years ago, and that hospital wrote off almost as much as they actually brought in money-wise, and so it was a real challenge for that hospital to maintain even back then, when things were a little more flush for all of us, and so. Yeah, it'll be different.
Well, this is going to put rural health care back on the map. It's been in a crisis mode.
It has been. I hope it does.
So it's a good thing for the citizens of Missouri. I know the rural areas didn't vote for it,
right,
but that's who it's going to help the most.
I agree.
So Phillip, based on the Medicaid expansion votes, and looking forward to November, doesn't that give 𝗏𝗏 some hope that she can pull this election off? I mean, her last election she won by about 6, and the map that Medicaid expansion won by last night is almost exactly her 2018 map.
It is. I actually saw that map last night. Someone had posted it with colors as far as percentages. And you're right. It's St. Louis, the surrounding counties, Columbia, Jackson County, surrounding area, and that's where it passed. So the question's going to be getting the people out to vote in those areas. And that's going to come down to whether or not, who the candidate is at the top of the ticket. Does Joe Biden and whoever his running mate is, do they inspire people to get out and vote in those areas, in those urban areas and suburban areas? Or does Donald Trump pull more people out in southeast Missouri and southwest Missouri to make up that difference? So she's got an uphill battle, I believe. Again, the power of incumbency, even though he wasn't elected to be the governor. Mike Parson is the governor, and he has the power of incumbency. And I think that's always a challenge, although she's a statewide elected official as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
I would say she woke up this morning thinking, that's the exact map that I drew up in 2018.
I've got a chance.
And I can win now.
So yes,
she's the big winner today, I think.
There you go.
Thank you for tuning in to the last episode of this season. Next season will start in September, and we had a lot of fun this year. We covered a lot of topics, a lot of it political. And Phillip, I'm going to give you the last word.
All right, we're going to start a new show, but I'm also going to be kind of a correspondent for Very Interesting, relating to political issues. So you're going to see my face quite a bit. When we start talking about what to name this new show, this idea that we wanted to put a show together that kind of encouraged civility in the discourse around politics as opposed to the fighting that's gone on back and forth among everybody. I thought about a speech that Theodore Roosevelt made in Paris in 1910. And the words that he said then were just as important today as they were then. Here's what he said. He said, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. For those of you who over the last 5 months have put yourself in the arena, many of you for the very first time, whether your name was on the ballot or someone else's name was on your chest, thank you. For those of you who were successful, congratulations. You enjoy the feeling. For those of you who were not successful or whose candidate was not successful yesterday, hold your head high. You were willing to take the chance. You dared greatly. All I ask of you is not to walk away from this process, from being part of the solution instead of the problem. Because we, the people, need men and women just like you in the arena.
Thanks for tuning in to Season 1 of Very Interesting. We covered many, many issues, many personalities. Hope you enjoyed the first season. Look forward to starting Season 2 around September the 10th.